June 26, 1943, Paris. A humid afternoon presses down on the Luftwaffe headquarters. General Adolf Galland sits with his officers, flipping through the latest combat reports with a cigarette burning down between his fingers. The paperwork is blunt. New American fighters, the Republic-built P-47, are appearing in numbers. To the Germans reading those sheets, the machine looks like a joke. Overweight, slow, a flying bathtub, one pilot scribbles in his margin notes. Galland exhales smoke, smirks, and waves a hand over the table. Too heavy to climb, too clumsy to dogfight, he remarks, dismissing the reports with the casual arrogance of a man convinced steel numbers don't lie. The room chuckles. But outside, in the skies over northern France, reality is beginning to take shape in a different form. A silver fuselage cuts across the English Channel at dawn. The sound is not the thin scream of a Daimler-Benz inline engine, but the deep, pulsing roar of 18 cylinders firing in brutal rhythm. The P-47's exhausts glow orange against the cold air, leaving a trembling ribbon of heat in its wake. 8 Browning .50 caliber guns hammer at once, each firing 13 rounds per second, and the vibration rattles through the cockpit like a jackhammer against steel plating. Shell casings spray downward in a glittering cascade as the fighter looses a burst into the clouds, the air itself feeling as though it has been struck by a piston rod. The reason for this clash is not abstract. At Gelsenkirchen, Germany's synthetic fuel hub, a single plant produces over 300,000 tons of aviation fuel per year. Break the numbers down. Each Bf-109 consumes roughly 90 gallons in one sortie. Each Fu-190 about 120. That means a single refinery's monthly output could fuel thousands of Luftwaffe missions. For the Americans planning round-the-clock bombardment, the equation is cold and simple. Destroy the fuel stream and German squadrons wither on the ground. For the Luftwaffe, defending those targets is survival. For the P-47, entering this equation is no longer about laughter or derision. It is about whether brute horsepower and a wall of fire can shut down the machinery that keeps Hitler's fighters airborne. In dark rooms beneath Bletchley Park, operators hunch over decrypts pulled from Luftwaffe radio chatter, codenames, times, sortie paths. Allied planners stitch together patterns, and the puzzle always points the same direction. German fighters will swarm the bombers before they reach the Ruhr. Across the Atlantic, at Republic Aviation's Long Island plant, factory whistles scream and shift doors slam shut. Men and women in coveralls bolt engine mounts, rivet panels, and slide canopies into place. On the floor, an average of 1 P-47C comes off the line every 52 minutes, a conveyor of aluminum, armor plate, and fuel tanks feeding directly into the European theater. Logistics officers calculate it coldly. For every lost aircraft, another waits in a crate, wings folded, ready for shipment. The numbers are a gear train meshing tighter every week. Zoom in. The Pratt & Whitney R2800 engine idles at 1200 RPM, a vibration running through the propeller like torque winding up a drive shaft. With the throttle open, the 18-cylinder radial erupts to 2,000 horsepower. The cockpit smells of oil and cordite, the canopy framing thick enough to take punishment. Empty weight, just under 10 tons. Maximum speed, 433 miles per hour at 30,000 feet. Armament, 8 M2 Browning heavy machine guns, each with 425 rounds, producing a combined fire rate over 100 bullets every second. A pilot pulls back the stick, feels the controls heavy but solid, the way a wrench feels when locked onto a stubborn bolt, unyielding but certain. By the end of 1944, Republic Aviation and its satellite plants will have rolled out 15,683 Thunderbolts, an industrial wave measured in steel and man-hours rather than just strategy. USAF Statistical Digest, 1945. Then the sky itself turns hostile. Rouen, August 1943. Bomber formations cut east in daylight, engines droning in rigid squares. Below, German flak guns open up, black puffs blooming across the pale horizon. The first P-47 group pushes ahead, scattering, guns already hot. From high altitude, Messerschmitt Bf-109s dive, their silhouettes flashing like blades. They expect fat, lumbering targets. A Thunderbolt jolts under cannon fire, armor plate ringing like a steel plate hit with a hammer. The pilot slams the throttle wide, engines screaming, and rolls left, slower than the nimble German machine. It looks like the Luftwaffe's joke has become a perfect setup. A heavy fighter that can't outclimb, can't turn inside, and has no place in the kind of knife fight the German veterans have honed since Spain. For a moment, the laughter seems justified, but the fight has only begun. The Americans refuse to let the pattern hold. After every bloody raid report, the math gets rewritten in briefing rooms. New drop tanks extend the Thunderbolt's reach past 400 miles, enough to cling to bomber formations longer than the Luftwaffe expected. Tactical manuals stress tight box formations, P-47s welded together in the sky, covering arcs with interlocking fields of fire. Radar stations along the English coast vector fighters to intercept before Germans can mass in strength. What looks chaotic from the ground is a system of gears meshing, escorts, bombers, controllers, each cog moving in precise timing to keep the bombing stream alive. The Luftwaffe adapts, but the margin for surprise is shrinking. Inside the cockpit, though, strain sets in. Pilots fight the Thunderbolt as much as they fight the enemy. At 25,000 feet, oxygen masks ice over and regulators fail, leaving men gasping while their aircraft lumbers upward in sluggish arcs. Against Bf-109s, the P-47's climb rate feels like dragging a chain uphill. Lieutenant Robert S. Johnson of the 56th Fighter Group noted in his July 1943 diary, "It takes an age to claw upward, but once there, God help the Hun in front of us. The fatigue isn't only physical. Every sortie means 6, sometimes 7 hours strapped in, the engine's vibration running through the frame like a jackhammer on the spine. Maintenance crews rotate shifts without pause, hunting cracked cylinders and frozen guns in the dark. The Thunderbolt's toughness is real, but it comes at a cost: weight, drag, stress. The machine is not forgiving, and neither is the sky. The first true catastrophe makes the weakness clear. August 17, 1943, the Schweinfurt-Regensburg mission. 376 B-17s cross into Bavaria. The P-47 escorts hold until fuel gauges bleed toward empty, then peel away. Luftwaffe squadrons surge in behind them like wolves chasing wagons. The result is merciless. 60 B-17s torn down in a single day, gunners firing until barrels melt, but the German fighters still punching through. Loss rates near 20%. In Berlin, propaganda offices announce American arrogance shattered. In Paris, Galland reads the kill tallies and believes his initial instinct confirmed. The P-47 may be loud, it may be tough, but it cannot alter the balance. For the moment, his laughter still echoes in the war rooms. The setback at Schweinfurt jolts the system. No one pretends the status quo will hold. At Republic Aviation, engineers roll out a new design tweak: the paddle blade propeller. Wider blades bite deeper into the air, and suddenly the Thunderbolt's climb rate improves by nearly 500 feet per minute. Pilots feel it instantly, less like hauling a brick upward, more like forcing a heavy gear into motion with a longer lever. Logistics teams hammer out refueling protocols, drop tanks arrive in bulk, and RAF bases adapt to swap them in minutes. Ground crews redesign maintenance cycles, cutting turnaround time so Thunderbolts can launch in larger, more continuous waves. Innovation is no longer optional. It is survival under pressure, each change measured not in theory, but in bodies saved and bombers kept flying. By March 1944, the shift is unmistakable. The mission, Berlin itself. Nearly 700 bombers mass over England, and more than 800 escort fighters rise to shield them. Engines thunder in layers, an airborne conveyor belt of steel stretching for miles. German radar picks them up, and every available Jagdgeschwader is scrambled to intercept. At altitude, the first interceptors dive and meet something different. P-47s open up from range, 8-gun salvos weaving a curtain across the sky. Tracer lines overlap until the air looks like it has been crosshatched with molten steel. A Luftwaffe after-action report later captured reads, "Our formations break apart. We cannot pass through. The fire is too dense." German pilots who once expected easy kills find themselves ripped apart before they can close on the bombers. On this day, the laughter dies. After that raid, the arithmetic becomes brutal for the Reich. Thunderbolts expand into fighter-bomber roles, raking trains, trucks, and airfields with bombs and rockets. By the war's end, they will fly 546,000 combat sorties, drop 132,000 tons of ordnance, and claim 20,000 enemy aircraft destroyed, according to official USAAF records. The numbers tell the story in cold steel, production matched with persistence, horsepower matched with firepower. For the Luftwaffe, the P-47 was never what they imagined. It was not a punchline, not a failed design, but a war machine whose sheer mass and durability could be engineered into victory. And so the verdict lands, not in laughter but in loss. What began as a joke in smoke-filled rooms became the hammer that smashed German air power open, proof that in war, weight and firepower, driven by relentless industry, can turn mockery into domination.